Joining me now for more from Perth, Australia is Alexey Muraviev. He's an associate professor of national security and strategic studies at Curtin University. Professor, good to have you on the program with us. I want to talk about the counteroffensive that we're seeing in the southern part of Ukraine. Do you think this is part of a growing momentum by the Ukrainian military?
Well, it is, and it's something that is well overdue because the Ukrainian officials were talking about this offensive since at least July. They were in the process of regrouping their forces. They were in the process of training up their forces in the UK and other places. They were in the process of receiving significant amounts of weaponry, armaments, munitions from the West, and clearly they needed to demonstrate that they can actually do something because they proved to be quite skillful in running defensive operations, but so far they haven't shown any capacity to be successful in waging large-scale offensive or counter-offensive operations. Occasionally they had tactical successes, but all of these successes were gradually overrun by the Russians. Let me just give you one more reason why this particular front of the assault has been chosen. Russia is planning to run referendums in areas that they managed to capture in Kherson and Zaporizhia regions back in March, and this referendum is due to take place next week. So I think one of the political reasons behind the choice of this offensive is to prevent the referendum from happening and to give the Ukrainians on Russian-controlled territories or Russian-occupied territories a bit of a sign, and certainly to those who chose to collaborate with the Russians, a bit of warning that Ukraine has every intent to recapture those lands.
Do you think that the planning and training of Ukrainian forces, as well as military support from the West, particularly the US, is making the difference here for Ukraine finally?
Look, I mean, it's really hard to judge. I don't see any evidence that Ukraine managed to bring in significant combat formations. We're still talking about attacks launched by tactical battalion groups. I think that what the Ukrainians managed to do quite successfully is massing a significant armor element in the region, because the Russians began attacking those armor elements only when it moved into battle. However, the Ukrainians face two major issues. One is the geography that doesn't play in their favor. We're talking about open plain areas where they cannot hide from Russian firepower as well as air power. And linked to that is the second challenge that they're facing. They haven't really been able to counter Russia's superior firepower, the artillery, tactical missile capability, and certainly army aviation, which is helicopters as well as fixed wing aircraft with similar force. So the Russians have technological advantage of managing this offensive by using their superior fire capability, land-based, sea-based, as well as air-based. And that can present the deadliest challenge to the Ukrainian military, because they can simply be wiped out whilst desperately trying to engage the Russian forces that are currently fighting defensive formations in the region.
Do you think if Ukraine can hold or even push back Russian forces in the region, that this could potentially be a turning point in the war?
Well, it can be a turning point politically, because Ukraine may get some upper ground in launching negotiations. I don't see the evidence, for now at least, that Ukraine has the actual physical capacity to liberate areas that were captured by the Russians. Taking control of a couple of settlements or villages. It may sound big, but it's a tactical success. If Ukraine will be able to recapture major regional centers such as Kherson, for example, or Melitopol, then it would be both symbolic, political, but also strategic success. So far, the Ukrainians managed to push through by several kilometers into Russian-controlled territories, but they haven't really been able to achieve anything more than that. And even if we dismiss Russia's reporting about Ukrainian heavy casualties, the very progress of this offensive demonstrates that Ukrainians, A, don't really have critical mass that would allow them to overwhelm the Russians, and certainly they continue to lack this key elements which I referred to earlier, which is a large concentration of artillery and missile capability, as well as proper air cover, which would allow the advancing forces to be protected from Russia's aerial counteroffensives, which is one of the keys in running successful operations in modern warfare these days.
All right, Alexey Muraviev joining us from Perth, Australia. Thank you.